Welcome back to the Aliens and Angels podcast. For those of you that are just joining me for the first time, since the beginning of 2025, I've started off the new year with chapters 1 to 4 from my new book called Transdimensional Meet the New Neighbors. So please do go back and watch the replays if you'd like to catch up. And today we will continue reading and discussing part 2, chapter 5, The Big Ship. And for those of you who have already purchased your copy, feel free to follow along, add your comments, and ask me questions arising from the content. And if you do not own your own copy, the links for both the Kindle and paperback versions are featured below in the description. All of the links are featured below. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, and please do share my content with your friends. And I'm happy to announce that channel memberships are now available, along with super chats, and I can't remember what the other one is called. But if you'd like to help support my work, that would be most appreciated. So today we're going to talk about the big ship, but I have a couple of announcements. I want to tell you that I have now published my second book called Transdimensional 2, Meet the Greys picture book. When you order the book, it will not have this band across the middle. This is just because it's a proof copy, and I'm waiting for my other copies to arrive from Amazon. And the first chapter in this book, I talk about my own experiences with Bob the Gray. And also I talk a bit about my experiences with just general with different kinds of ETs. And then the second chapter, I have featured 7 people who are well known for having extensive ET contact. Here's a couple pages that were submitted by Preston Dennett, and he talks about his experiences with the Greys, and he submitted a little picture. And then the rest of the book is black and white images. There's over 250 full-size black and white images. And the reason I published this book, put it together and published it, is because I believe that we are right on the edge of contact. Well, many of us have already had contact, but for the general public, when they start to see humanoids that don't look exactly like us, that is probably going to result in a fear response. And of course, the media is always trying to whip up our emotions, and there's all kinds of agencies who want us to be afraid of ET. And I believe that's because we have the false alien invasion that they've got queued up to basically force us to unite in a global system, which may or may not be at our best interest. So I'm just, for the heck of it, going to show you a few images from my new book, so you get an idea of what's included. Now, when you buy the book, the images are in grayscale, and the reason for that is because it would cost 3 times as much to publish it in color. And until people decide whether or not they would want a color version, I thought I better keep the price down so you all can afford to buy the book and have these images. But the good news is, on my website under the shop tab, and the links are below, if you like, you can purchase a PDF that's got 35 of these images. And it's from that PDF. I'm going to have more, but I've just started with these. I don't actually have this one available yet, but it will be available this week. So check out my website and follow along, and you'll get to see it. So here's just some of the males, and these are not actual photographs. These were created. I worked with AI to generate these images. So these are AI generated. But the point is not the fact that they are not exact replicas of actual different races of grays. The fact is that it will help get you used to humanoids who look different than us, so that when they start to make their presence known here on Earth on a larger scale, you won't be afraid. You'll be able to stay grounded. You'll be able to use your critical thinking skills and not be misled by the government agencies or the military or whatever, who have a vested interest in having you be afraid. So these are just some of the images. This particular one has 35 full size color images of the males. I'm going to have a PDF for the females, one for the children, one for stereotypical grays, another one for hybrid children, and yet another one which I call the Grays family photos. And these are all going to be available very soon on my website as PDFs for a very nominal fee, like a couple of dollars. It is all they're going to cost. So yeah, so that's coming up. And again, I have the book now available on Amazon from the Amazon store if you'd like to purchase this amazing and extensive book with so many images so that you can get used to what the grays look like. And so, like I said, these are not exact replicas, but they will give you an idea and the diversity that is amongst these races, and not be so afraid. So there's that. And then I also want to tell you the book that I'm going to read from today about the big ship. Again, when you order this, there won't be the band across the center. I'm waiting for some more copies to arrive from Amazon. But when you buy this book, it also contains many images, and I have taken those images and put them into a PDF, and I'll just give you a little look what that will look like. And that is from my first book, which was published in December. And you can see that the images are full size and full color, so that you can enjoy these images at your leisure. There's Bob the Gray, and get an idea of, better idea of what these beings and what things are like off world and also aboard the big ship. So I'm just going to flip through to an image. There's the big ship. So the big ship is not this big flower of life. The big ship is in the center, and I'll read more about it, but that gives you the gist of what it looks like. Now, I've also got some bonus content that's not available in my book, and I'll just give you a little look at that. And this is another PDF that's available from the shop on my website. Again, the link is below, and it's only, I think, around $2.70 American, $3.99 Canadian, very nominal fee, and you get 35 full color images. So these are images that are not found in my book. So this is bonus content. There's Bob the Gray, as I mentioned before. He has quite the sense of humor, and he presents himself as looking like this, although this is not exactly what he looks like. And as I mentioned before, there's much diversity amongst the extraterrestrial beings. Many of them look very much like us, and some of them look a little different. And so there's 35 of these full color, full size images that you can enjoy if you download the PDF from my website. So that's what's new. And of course, I will have more PDFs available. So you basically want to go to the shop and you want to click the inspired images icon, and the inspired images will take you to where these PDFs are available. And like I said, you can download it and enjoy these images any way that you want. So that's what's new. And thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate you, whether you're here for the live or a replay or on an audio podcast. If you're listening to this on an audio podcast, I highly recommend you come back and watch the live show or the replay so that you can get an idea of what I'm talking about when I mention these visuals. So I'm just going to very quickly check to make sure I'm streaming on Rumble. Sometimes I am, and sometimes I am not, even though I'm supposed to be. Yes, I am, and yes, I am. Okay, and I'm also streaming live on, of course, YouTube and on X for those of you who want to watch the live. So on that happy note, I'll get a little bit back into my book. So today we're talking about the big ship, and I'm reading directly from the book so that I don't miss any important um, description or content. And like I said, if you have your book, you can follow along. And if you don't have one yet, you can order it from Amazon, any Amazon from any country that has access to Amazon. It's available. And you may want to go to the Amazon website and then click in their menu on books. And then once you click on books, a new search bar comes up, and that's where you type in the name of the book, Transdimensional, Meet the New Neighbors, and it will appear. I've unfortunately had a lot of people contact me and say, I can't find your book on Amazon, but that's because they didn't go into the book section. And I don't know why that is, and I hope it gets fixed soon, but that's how it is for now anyway. So, chapter 5, page 76. Welcome to the big ship, and the first subheading is size and location of the big ship. People often ask me where the big ship is located. They want to know if it's in our solar system or star quadrant or galaxy. And the truth is that the big ship is not located in any of these physical three-dimensional places. It sits in an interdimensional envelope located at the intersection point of many different interdimensional places. And in this way, it is possible for the big ship to interface with many positions and realities within the multiverse and even the spiritual realms. Imagine a complex Venn diagram with many oval shapes overlapping each other here and there. Each oval represents a different dimensional reality or position within a universe. At the center is an area where every one of these ovals in the Venn diagram overlaps at the same point. This is interdimensional space, and this is where the big ship is located. From there, it's easy to host many beings from many different dimensional realities, including what we perceive as our 3D reality. It is also interesting to note that all of these dimensional realities coexist in the now, so there is no need to travel through time and space, which are constructs of our making. So you do not need to travel to access the big ship, and the big ship does not actually travel anywhere. It alters perceived location by adjusting its frequency, which shifts it to another place. Point A literally becomes point B. Further, the big ship and other city ships must be biological or organic in nature in order for them to traverse the various and different dimensional realities. More about this later. I'm just going to check the chat. And there we have. Hello, Maya. Nice to see you. Hello, and thank you for this live, Karen. You're very welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. And in case you missed the beginning, I have some announcements. I have some PDFs that are available from my website, and I think I will just quickly show them towards the end of the show. So hang on and enjoy this content. I'm reading from page 76, chapter 5. Welcome to the big ship. In addition, I only remember seeing the big ship from the outside once, and I do not remember if I was viewing it from a smaller craft or if I was viewing the big ship while astral traveling, remote viewing, or some other disembodied state. It appeared black, glossy, and reflective with arms protruding from the edges, which bent off to the side like the arms of a galaxy. There were docking bays on and within the arms where the smaller craft were created or docked and stored. The main body of the ship was shaped like a plump button. It was basically spherical with a slightly flattened top and bottom. Occasionally, other city ships, which look similar, visit and join the big ship by docking on the top or bottom, which causes a stacking effect. Times of this joining facilitated trade, community celebrations, and joint projects. Those were very exciting times. I learned via the virtual reality headset that the docking arms of many ships can also straighten out and connect tip to form mesh-like worlds that surround small stars. They remain in these universal communities for thousands of years, but from time to time, individual ships will break off to pursue other interests. When this happens, the remaining ships adjust their locations slightly so that the space in the network disappears. At other times, incoming city ships will join the mesh, and in this case, the other ships will adjust their location to accommodate the incoming neighbor. These are also the vast communities where new city ships are created and incubated to maturity. When they are ready to leave their mesh-like world, they carry an experienced crew who immigrate from other older city ships. As you will soon learn, these city ships are organic and conscious beings in of themselves. To add more detail, each city ship is very, very large, many miles in diameter. Some city ships are so enormous they would be like a metropolis as seen here on Earth, but some are as big as the Earth or even larger. And I learned there is great diversity amongst them. Although many are as I have described, some are even more spectacular, and they can be organic, etheric, and or light ships, depending on the nature of the beings that dwell in them and their purpose for being. Let's take a look inside the big ship. Inside the big ship, page 77. The interior layout is like an easy to navigate labyrinth with many flat floors. There are no sharp corners as every room and space is cylindrical or ovoid in shape. Except for our sleeping quarters and bath areas, everything is well lit, but I couldn't tell exactly where the light was coming from. It appears to just emanate from the walls, ceilings, and floors, and the degree of illumination depends on what tasks are required for that particular area. In addition, the floors, walls, and ceilings were seamless and appeared to be made of something like soft-feeling, cream-colored leather. They were not rigid, but were somewhat flexible or slightly spongy to the touch. If you were to fall, you would not get hurt, and it was very comfortable to sit or even recline on the floor, which many beings prefer over furniture. I noticed that the walls were reactive to the touch. At one point during my orientation, I ran my finger down the wall as I scrutinized its texture and was surprised to find little ripples emanating from my touch. You might be wondering how we get from one point to another on these enormous city ships. Many of us walked to where we wished to go, but for longer distances, we were transported within the big ship by vertical anti-gravity lifts or horizontal moving pathways, something like a conveyor belt, but without any visible moving parts. Let me tell you about one very memorable experience with the vertical lift system. At one point, as we prepared to leave the big ship, we used the vertical transport system to head down to the docking bay located on one of the ship's arms. The vertical transport system was very long, like a mile long, as it served many floors. I stepped off the platform onto nothing, as I seemed to be suspended in the empty space, and I placed my hands on the narrow handle grips before me, which determine the speed of descent. I wanted to see how fast I could go at maximum speed of drop, so I squeezed the handle grips as hard as I could and immediately went whipping down, squealing with laughter. The female being who was waiting to come down after me jumped on head first and came flying down after me in mock pursuit. We had great fun and laughter racing down to the docking bay. At the bottom, there was a little poof of air, but no noticeable impact, and we simply stepped off and onto the docking bay platform. So, yeah, that was really fun. While I was aboard, I realized that the whole ship was alive and intuitive, and I learned it utilizes something like self-assembling biological nanocomponents, which form according to our needs and intentions. Everything is linked into the biological intelligence because the big ship is alive and conscious. It operates like artificial intelligence, but it is organic or biological, and it's not artificial. We can telepathically communicate with it directly, and it learns very fast. I don't know if it has a brain or what, and I did not see any evidence of computers, technical interface, screen, or anything like that. I don't know the details of how it works, but it was the coolest thing that I've ever seen. More about this in the chapter on my orientation. I also realized there was some spatial reality aboard the big ship. For instance, we can't all manifest our quarters in the same place, and the basic layout was designed with a purpose, but each section has everything for every purpose and just self-assembles according to our intention. In addition, everything is automated. Even the doorways appear and respond to our desire. My experience was not at all like a Star Trek episode or Star Wars scene. I saw no evidence of technology apart from the handheld devices, which projected flat or holographic images to suit our needs, or the virtual reality headsets. And there were no panels or large screens with lights requiring constant adjustment or recalibrations. Part of the crew were special technicians who telepathically communicated directly with the big ship in order to tend to its needs, plot a new destination, or to take care of other technical details. There was also a mechanism which I referred to as a printer for creating the things we needed or desired, like dishes or clothing, but I did not personally witness this action. So I saw the results of the printer, but I call it a printer. It's kind of like halfway between a 3D printer and a replicator, as seen on the Star Trek series, kind of halfway in between. But I certainly saw the result of it. You might be wondering who cleans the interior of the big ship. We have no need for janitors or cleaning crews. The cleaning system is automatic, almost undetectable, and is part of the environmental system which supplies our oxygen and other airborne necessities. Some beings emit more odor than others, and by contrast, quite a few have a very sensitive sense of smell. To remedy this and other issues like the shedding of skin cells, fibers, dust particles, bacteria, or even spills or breakage, the big ship emits a type of fine neutralizing, cleansing, and sanitizing mist, which breaks waste down to its smallest components as it settles on everything and everyone, and then it is gently sucked back into the ventilation system and is recycled along with all other waste materials. This enzyme-like substance does no harm to the beings and is barely noticeable. In this way, the air and the environment are kept clean all of the time. So, I mean, at first I noticed it, but pretty soon I didn't notice it anymore. And it's just like a really fine dust that like settles on everything. And I don't know how I assume it's programmed because it can tell the difference between a living organism and something that's no longer living, like dust or skin cells or the tiny, tiny microscopic components that create smell that react to our senses as smell. But it just basically neutralizes all of that, and then it's constantly gently sucked back into the system. So it's constantly, constantly happening, and you're hardly even aware of it. And everything is always clean and smells fresh. The healing pods. Everyone aboard the big ship is in perfect health. There are healing pods to prepare the body for life on the big ship and to use before we head out to do expeditions to selected planets. Each planet is unique and presents different stresses to the body, so we must prepare for variables in atmosphere, gravity, nutrition, etc. Since many of us also have subtle differences in our physiology, the healing pods keep our bodies or clone bodies in perfect health while aboard the big ship. And I'll explain more about clone bodies as we get into the book. I remember the first time I used a healing pod. I was led to a large space with about 100 of these devices lining the room in circle within circle formation. Each one was cylindrical in shape and they open up like a clamshell. Most were about 8 feet long and had lots of room inside. Some were a lot longer and bigger, and I wondered if they were designed for giants. I climbed in and was surprised at how comfortable the moss-like padding was. I laughed a bit as I compared it to a big coffin in my mind's eye. Once the top section closed, the internal lighting dimmed, and I suddenly felt a bit sleepy and very relaxed. I was aware of some gentle tones, which sounded to me like classical music. The air was very moist and fresh, and it reminded me of the smell of a forest. I must have fallen asleep because the next thing I knew, the top lifted, and there was my buddy smiling down at me, offering me a hand up. I felt fantastic. So I will read more about my buddy in the next um, chapter called Orientation, or you can read ahead if you have the book. Other facilities. As I mentioned before, the big ship is biological, and it is made up of many different sections or cubicles which easily convert and yield to your telepathic intention. Each section has everything for every purpose, and it all just self-assembles according to your desire. Everything is seamlessly automated with no moving parts. Even the doorways appear and respond to your intention, then dissolve after you go through them. The corridors seem to be fixed spaces, as are the rooms which support the hydroponics, but the rest is adaptable to suit every purpose. So you know how when you're watching Star Trek, the doors, when someone goes up to the doorways, they go whoosh and they open up, and then after you go through, they close. Well, on the big ship, it's not really like that. There is no visible doorway. And when you have the intention of going from one section to another or one room to another, it just self assembles. A doorway just appears. You go through and then it dissolves again. It's very, very interesting. Um, One thing that a lot of people don't talk about with their ET contact is where do they go to the bathroom? That was one of the first things I wanted to know. As I mentioned before, the other ship is the big ship is biological, and it is made up of many different sections or cubicles which easily convert and yield to your telepathic intention. Each section has everything for every purpose, and it all just self-assembles according to your desire. Everything is seamlessly automated with no moving parts. Even the doorways appear and respond to your intention, then dissolve after you go through them. The corridors seem to be fixed spaces, as are the rooms which support the hydroponics, and the rest is adaptable to suit every purpose. Sorry, I just read that. Didn't realize I just read that. Well, you got to hear that part twice. The restrooms are really cool. They are small and have a platform that assembles out of the wall. You never have to touch anything. Since we all share a similar body design, the plumbing mechanisms are very simple. Basically, after dropping your drawers, you squat slightly and a pleated type of wide tube will assemble and extend up from the platform, and it offers as much support as you want. When you are done, you don't have to do anything. The toilet tube sprays a fine mist, which is immediately and gently sucked back down the tube. This mist instantly dissolves any debris, moisture, etc., that might exist and takes it back down the tube. So all you do is pull up your pants and go. Afterward, the pleated tube dissolves and sinks back into the platform and then disassembles and recedes back into the wall. By the way, these beings are healthier than us, and I couldn't help but notice that they didn't need to go to the bathroom very often, not the way we do. There are no hand sanitizers available or anything like that. As mentioned earlier, the housekeeping system is very simple. Every room emits fine enzymatic mist-like substance that sanitizes, removes odors, etc., and it is constantly sucked or vacuumed away by a silent, gentle air conditioning slash filtration system. The mist is completely inert and does not hurt the body or health in any way. Everything, including our clothes, are constantly sanitized. All waste material from food scraps, restroom, or clothing, everything goes back into a recycling system where it is broken down into smaller elements by biological critters that I will call bugs. They are alive and thrive in that environment. The resultant fluids are separated into clean, fresh drinking water or a viscous fluid which supplies the communal baths and hydroponic systems. And the more solid fluids are fed back into the 3D printing system, which operates a little like a replicator. As a side note, food is never replicated. It is not like a Star Trek experience, not really. There are some small similarities, but the reality is much more advanced and is more eco-friendly. So yeah, so that's how everything happens for you, and it is amazing. It's clean, it's efficient. Um, yeah, it's amazing. So next I want to talk about the gardens because that's where we would get our food supply from. Gardens galore, page 81. One of the most defining features on the big ship is the abundance of plant life. Most of the plants serve as live refreshments, what we would consider to be food, and most plants that grow on the big ship originate from many different worlds. The gardens grow in every department and along many wide corridors, and as described earlier, are supported and fed by a hydroponic system. Beautiful, lush, and integrated within the big ship, the live food is treated with light, sound, and other frequencies to enhance nutritional values. There are many different species of plants because most beings have slightly different preferences and nutritional requirements. Some edibles are similar to our fruits, vegetables, flowers, and fungi. And I also saw variations of nuts, seeds, and herbs, but I did not see any grains, evidence of grains, cereals, or legumes. So I thought that was interesting. None of these plants contain things like lectins, histamines, oxalates, or other not so healthy anti-nutrients, so they are all easy to digest. They are never grown from genetically engineered or transgenic seeds or spores, nor do they ever need herbicides or insecticides or other chemicals for them to grow in abundance. As I mentioned, some foods are similar to what we would eat here on Earth, but other plants produce nutritional substances once they have expired and fermented. Nuts, seeds, and herbs were readily available, but were ready to eat at different times as the growing environment mimics seasonal cycles as we would expect. Also, complete proteins and other nutritional necessities are achieved by combining certain foods in specific processes like fermentation, aging, and ebullition, which means cooking. Not surprisingly, just as the beings aboard need sustenance, so does the big ship. So I get into this a little bit later in the book. Once I perfected, or not perfected, but got proficient at telepathy, I then started to train in my personal area of interest. And I was super interested in botany and in the plants, and why I had tried living as a vegan here on Earth because I don't want to hurt animals. And my digestive system could not handle it. I got really, really sick. And so I wondered why I was able to eat aboard the big ship and not get sick. So I thought that was really interesting. And that's what sparked my interest in the plants, which led to my botany specialization. And I'll get into that more later on in the book. So we're at the half point time. So I'm just going to share with you, for those of you who are not familiar with my book, a little bit about it and where you can find it. And then we'll come back and we'll talk about what powers the big ship? How does it power up? What does it use for fuel? And details like that. So we'll see you in a couple of minutes. Transdimensional, meet the new neighbors. Check out my new book available from Amazon bookstores worldwide and read the stunning details about ET diversity and culture, along with their advanced ways of living and expressing spirituality, which is in no way like anything imagined here on Earth. Transdimensional, Meet the New Neighbors introduces you to many different ET beings, the healing pods, the interior of the big ship, my orientation process, cultural events, and off-world mating practices. When I tucked myself into bed for the night back in 2014, I had no idea that I would be transported to the big ship, meet many different extraterrestrial races of beings, become well acquainted with their culture, and visit numerous interesting worlds. While away, I learned a great deal about the big ship, intergalactic and transdimensional travel, intergalactic planetary research, and the various options for resettlement. My true life adventures continued night after night, and I had never experienced anything like this before. The first few times that I awoke back at home, I convinced myself that it had all been some kind of a fantastic dream. But while away, I was eating, sleeping, learning, and visiting, all the while experiencing what I perceived as days, weeks, and months. I am so happy to present you with my true nonfiction account of my weird little life and the more important messages from beyond our realm that I have been tasked to share with all of you. It is my hope and sincere desire that I will inspire you to acknowledge your own transdimensional abilities and experiences so that together we can become the change we wish to see in our world. Paperback and Kindle editions are now available at all Amazon bookstores. Go to the Amazon website, select the bookstore or Kindle store, and enter Transdimensional, Meet the New Neighbors by Karen Holton. The Audible version is coming out soon. And we're back. Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, some people are having trouble finding my book, well, now books, on Amazon. So what I suggest you do is go to the Amazon website for the country that you live in and go to the menu and click books or Kindle store, and then type in on the secondary search bar that comes up, type in the name of the book, and you should be able to find it quite easily. If you still can't find it, shoot me an email and I'll be happy to send you a link. So we're continuing on page 82 from my book, and we're going to talk about powering up and relocation of the big ship. There are various ways to power these city ships. Components for energy can be taken from various space objects and luminaries, but the process that I personally witnessed really surprised me. Basically, the ship was powered by the occupants. The city ships are energy efficient, but every once in a while they need a power boost. For example, when the big ship needs to replenish its energy stores, the occupants willingly donate some of their life force energy. When the day for this process arrives, everyone takes a comfortable position somewhere on the big ship, and we participate in ritual and meditation to release the needed energy all at once. The ship emits gentle frequencies that sound like soothing tones to help us to enter into a deep state of relaxation. Then the ship absorbs what it needs from our collective life force energy. This takes several hours and leaves us feeling very tired. Over the next few days, we rest, we take light meals, we offer gratitude to the big ship, and use this downtime to celebrate the experience. On rare occasions, there are a few who do not quickly recover, and they are assisted to the healing pods, which are used to stimulate their own ability to restore life force energy reserves. This spiritual event only lasts for a few days, but it is considered an enjoyable celebratory respite from our everyday duties and routine. I witnessed a similar process when we moved the big ship interdimensionally from one point of the time space continuum to another. It was unlike any kind of travel that I have ever seen. Instead of moving from point A to point B, point A literally becomes point B. This action was similar to the refueling process, and when the time was right, the occupants found comfortable places to rest. I was taken up to the observation deck so I could see our new location as we arrived. On the day that we relocate, we eat very sparingly, only taking a very small snack in the morning. We stay in a sober, contemplative state throughout the day, as this is considered to be a spiritual event. I reclined with my friends and prepared for the ceremony. The ship emitted audible tones of frequency, which put us into a very deep meditative state. I fell into a deep sleep, and a couple of hours later, my friends woke me to see our new location. As I mentioned, these city ships do not travel the way we think of travel. There's no travel from one place to another. The big ship is given the new coordinates and somehow uses our meditative state to fold space. And through this transdimensional process, we just appear at the new location. This process did not make us feel tired, like when we offered up some of our life force energy. Instead, after the big ship emitted its reviving tones, we became alert and we felt all rested and ready to celebrate. Since I was on the observation deck, I could see the expanse above, and instead of the inky blackness as we had seen at our previous location, I was delighted to find an enormous starburst of color. It was so beautiful. Then we all raced down to our community dining area and we prepared a feast for each other. Everyone was so happy and lighthearted. This process of pulling energy from the occupants, methods of travel, etc., have evolved into very meaningful cultural celebrations, and I will tell you more in Chapter 7. Now, let's talk about the different ways that beings access the big ship. So I'm just checking the chat. I don't see any new questions coming in, so I'll just continue with the next section. Physical presence and non-physical presence aboard the big ship. As far as I can tell, I'm able to visit the big ship in a few different ways. I can either physically attend as my whole self, or I can use what I define as the use of non-local bilocation, which is also in the flesh. Or I can use non-local consciousness transfer with the use of clones. And occasionally I can do a consciousness swap with another being who is aboard the big ship. Available clones include one size fits all, which I call generic, identical genetic copy, which would be my body but better, and specialization/utilitarian, which serves more as a technical environment suit which contains the visiting being's will and consciousness. I have a healthy, identical body, which is an exact but improved genetic copy of me on hold back on my home away from home, the big ship. Before I received my genetic copy clone, I used a generic clone once or twice. I don't know if the generic ones are biological, synthetic, actual clones of an original, or are manufactured or printed. I am sure that I would have inquired about this, but strangely, I do not remember the explanation. I do remember that they were fairly easy to adapt to physically, but I do not remember eating or excreting while possessing one. Psychologically, I was not fully comfortable with this process and limited my visits to only a couple of days at most while I was in that form. The first time I occupied one of the generic clone bodies, I remember looking in the mirror at myself and immediately I felt a wave of nausea. Physically, it took a little getting used to, but more than this was the deep psychological effect this form had on me. Until this moment, I did not see the depth of my false image that I had created to cover up my insecurities about myself. Beliefs I held about what it meant to be female, a white woman, an attractive, mature woman, my status symbols, how intelligent I thought I looked, my degree of physical rightness, all of this disappeared while I gazed into the mirror, and in the absence of these illusions, which I had convinced myself were truth, I saw who I really was at my core. So you can imagine looking in the mirror and seeing only the generic clone looking back at you. You lose all the illusions that we believe about ourselves to make us feel more right with the world or whatever. And you lose all of that when you look in the mirror and see your clone face. This exercise really shook me up as I realized that what mattered most to my existence as a human being was the non-physical merit I held as a developing soul. The content of my heart and the things that did not show up on my external self were the things that truly mattered. And this helped me to strengthen my resolve to become more beautiful on the inside. It also illustrated how little our external selves matter in the long run. And discerning this allowed me to become even closer to my ET companions. So again, the way they looked physically didn't matter. What mattered was the condition of their hearts and their kindness and their peacefulness and the ways that they inspired me, which I will get into later in the book. Closely related to this experience was one where I briefly traded consciousness with another being who physically resided on the big ship. Interestingly, I don't have full memory of what this was like, but after I returned to my body on Earth, I ran into an acquaintance who had tried to get a hold of me without success while I was away. My poor fellow human knew that I was home, but was feeling frustrated by the fact that I wouldn't answer the door or the telephone, and they were worried about my well being. I knew better than to try to explain that I had swapped consciousness with an alien being living on a spaceship which resides in an interdimensional envelope. So I simply said, I'm sorry you were worried. I was feeling really depressed for a few days there, but I'm all right now. Yeah, so you really have to lead a dual life when you're having these experiences. You cannot tell people. First of all, they wouldn't understand. Second of all, they might have trouble handling it. Um, Regardless of the physical forms we take, I couldn't begin to tell you how the various transfers happen, but I am sure they are initiated by the beings on the big ship and take place with our consent and approval. When we are taken by these ETs, we rarely take our physical bodies with us for two reasons. The first is because, in the case of non local corporeal bilocation, it takes a lot of energy to split and transport our complete selves, mind, body, and spirit to their interdimensional location. Now, when I say spirit, I'm not necessarily referring to soul. And I'm not sure. I think the soul is something we don't understand, and it's encompasses regardless of how many physical forms we take or etheric forms we take. But the spirit is kind of the life force that keeps us functioning. So the first is because, in the case of non-local corporeal bilocation, it takes a lot of energy to split and transport our complete selves, mind, body, and spirit to their interdimensional location. The same is true to facilitate our actual attending physically as our whole selves. But a more important reason is because we are so toxic from our environment here on Earth that we would pollute their pristine environment. Here on Earth, without our permission, our bodies have been used as filters for all kinds of industrial waste like fluoride, chlorine, other chemicals, radiation, heavy metals, and more. Our city water often contains aluminum, lead, nitrates, chlorine, arsenic, herbicides, pesticides, chloramines, mercury, microorganisms, bacteria, viruses, perchlorate, pharmaceuticals, copper, fluoride, mercury, parasites, MTBE, PFAS, uranium, and other pollutants. Besides our drinking water, our food, atmosphere, clothing, cookware, and so much more are toxic as well. This is why physical and mental detoxification is so important if we're serious about making contact and gaining access to intergalactical and transdimensional experiences. Oh, I just realized Maya. Maya asked, will we here on Earth be living someday the way you experienced on the big ship? Absolutely. I am absolutely convinced of this. And I think that process is actually already started. Once we have zero point technology, anti-gravitational technologies, all these things that are coming out now, everything will change. We won't be dependent on oil and gas anymore. We won't be dependent on all the things that are made out of oil and all the toxic residues. So I'm not saying oil and gas are a bad thing. At this point, they were necessary, but we're moving into a new era where we won't be making plastics out of toxic elements and all the other pharmaceuticals and all the stuff that's poisoning us. It won't be needed. It'll be identified as toxic, and in the world's efforts to elevate us back into being healthy humans, those things will be eliminated, and we'll find all kinds of new substances that we didn't think of before, perhaps making containers out of crystal, different kinds of crystal elements, or just different things that are non-toxic. Absolutely, I believe this is well on its way and is coming. And so I think, again, as I've mentioned before, the purpose of me being able to retain so many of my memories so I could write this book was to show people that and to help people to be hopeful that there are changes coming and we can live much more like our intergalactic and interdimensional brothers and sisters. And then we can become friends with them and learn from them. And there's just the sky's the limit. The sky's the limit. Since our physical bodies are so toxic, we usually travel via consciousness transfer into a generic or a genetic clone body, or we do a swap of consciousness with another being who is physically already there, as I have described. This allows us to work off world while we sleep. More about this in later pages. I was taught that there is another method of instant transport to any star system or dimensional reality with and without physicality. I'm not sure how it works, but when you open yourself up vibrationally to it, you dematerialize and are instantly transported to the desired location. Historical writings refer to this process as performed by enlightened masters, yogis, and other spiritually advanced humans. As far as I remember, I have never been transported this way, but I'm open to the experience. I believe that the Monroe Institute has protocols to help you with this if you would like to try it. We can also initiate the consciousness transfer experience through etheric or astral travel, lucid dreaming, lucid consciousness, and remote viewing. And ET knows when we are there. In February of 2020, Bob the Gray facilitated a very detailed astral travel, lucid dream, remote viewing session for me so that I could go back and visit my friends on the big ship. As I etherically floated down the hallways, the beings looked up and directly at me, and they sent me telepathic messages of greetings and love. And I was so delighted that they knew that I was there. So, why am I grouping these things together? Because astral traveling, you're aware that you're outside of your body, but when you're so um, sort of overtaken by the experience when you're not thinking about what your body or ethereal body looks like, and you realize that your focus is on your intention of being someplace else. That is feels indistinguishable from lucid dreaming, which is indistinguishable from remote viewing because you're focused on where you're going or what's happening around you and not so much on your physical form. And that's why I think that all of these things are actual different facets of the same phenomenon. Later, during the same visit in 2020, several beings shared with me information about various kinds of nefarious physical, genetic, and etheric implants, the ways that they manifest and attach to humans, and what would be the best way to remedy them. But I should also mention there are many different kinds of implants, and they are not all nefarious. And some people wish to keep them as they serve an important purpose. But of these, I know very little. In contrast, according to my ET friends, nefarious implants have been holding back the development of our race for some time. But it's not that difficult to dissolve them with frequency producing items like crystals, orgone generators, essential oils, and mindful meditations. When I got home, I created a few remedy kits, which have helped quite a few people, and I have a video or two about them on my YouTube and other channels. So, as you can see, there are a few ways that I was able to access the big ship. When I participate in the ongoing exopolitical ambassador meetings, I always attend in a disembodied etheric form because physicality is not required. I remember one time as an experiment, I did a consciousness swap with another being who resided on the big ship. And although it was a very weird experience, it worked out quite well. In addition, I suspect that I may have been picked up physically and transported to the big ship on occasion, but I don't have any clear memories of this. Sorry to disappoint the nuts and bolts researchers, but I saw no evidence of direct physical pickup of humans, including myself, from Earth with any kind of a physical spaceship. And I'm not ruling it out. I just don't remember this happening for me. So I'm only reporting on what I clearly remember. And there's lots I don't remember, and there's lots that I don't know. And I'm not going to make it up because I want to be as honest as I can with all of you so that you can adjust your expectations about ET contact, which I think is escalating. So just to finish off, page 87, although I felt insecure at first, I came to enjoy my life aboard the big ship. During the 3 months of Earth time that I was taken nightly to the big ship, there was a time dilation, as explained elsewhere in this book. But in a single Earth night, it felt like I was away for days or weeks at a time. And over this 3 month period, I enjoyed a total of about 3.5 years worth of experiences. Most of this was indeed a physical experience, and it was important for me to meet the demands of interdimensional life and trips to worlds that I was not designed to inhabit. This required frequent sessions in a healing pod. Now, let me tell you about my orientation process. So, we'll pick up next week here. And again, if you'd like to buy the book, it's available from Amazon, and I have links in the description below. For those of you who missed the beginning of the podcast, I just want to announce that on my website, and again, the link is below, it's www.karenholtonhealthcoach.com. That's KarenHolton healthcoach.com. If you go to the shop and you click the tab or the icon for inspired images, you'll see that I now have some beautiful full color PDFs available of images taken from my book. I'll just quickly show you a few of the images. There's the big ship in the center of that flower of life. The flower of life is kind of a metaphor for all the overlapping dimensional realities that form the interdimensional envelope where the big ship resides. And here's an image of the beautiful gardens aboard the big ship. And we use all of these things, petals from flowers and greenery and everything. We use it as sustenance and food. Here's my buddy. You'll learn more about her next week. So I have 35 beautiful images that are taken from my book. Those images are included in my book, but they're in grayscale. But you can have full-size copies in full color if you go to my website. The other thing is I also have a second PDF available, and it has 35 images from my not from my first book, but they are from my experience that I describe in my first book, and I would call this bonus material. So these are images that are not found in my book and not really found anywhere else of different extraterrestrial beings, so that you can have these beautiful full-size, full-color images. There's 35 per PDF, and you can have them available to enjoy at your leisure. And then finally, I just want to mention that my second book, which I have just published, called Transdimensional 2, Meet the Greys Picture Book, which has the first 2 chapters is text and information and some images by 8 people, including myself, who have had contact with the Greys. And all of them, well, they didn't all start off positive, but they ended up in the long run being to our advantage. And then I have 7 chapters full of images of what we would call the Greys. And the reason why I've published this book is so that you can overcome your fear of beings who look different than us, that are humanoids, but look different than us. And I think that's really important so that you can stay grounded and you can use your critical thinking skills when more contact becomes apparent and these beings are no longer hidden from us. So this is the first one from my second book, and this is all about males. I'm going to have another PDF that has the females, another one that has the children, another one that has hybrids. And as I mentioned earlier, these are not photographs, they are AI generated. I spent many hours working with AI to generate images as close to the real thing as I could get. And so that's not, this third PDF is not added yet to my website, but it'll be coming out this week. And again, the images in the book are in grayscale because it would cost 3 times as much to purchase the book in color. You may as well get it in grayscale. They're grays anyway. They don't have a lot of color or pigment to them. And I talk about that and why that is in the book. But you may as well just download the beautiful full-size, full-color images in PDF form from my website. So that's about all we have for today. Thank you so much for joining me, whether you're here in the live chat or whether you're watching the replay or whether you're listening on an audio podcast. I appreciate each and every one of you very, very much. Please consider taking out a channel membership and also buy my book from Amazon worldwide and enjoy benefiting from my experiences. And that's about all we have for today. Please join me Wednesday for the Quantum Guide Show, which airs an hour later, 1 o'clock Mountain Time, noon Pacific, or 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Again, we'll be going live. I've got an exciting guest, and it's all about becoming with Jay Skyrunner, and it's all about becoming the new human 2.0 avatar. So with that, I'll say bye-bye and wish you much love, and we will see you soon. Thank you for joining me for the Aliens and Angels podcast. Read about my true life ET contact in my book called Transdimensional Meet the New Neighbors, which is now available on Amazon worldwide. Subscribe to my YouTube, Rumble, and X channels at Karen Holton TV. The like button and leave me a comment, and please do share this podcast with your friends. Check out my website at www.KarenHoltonHealthCoach.com to see my free resources and amazing products and services. All of the links will be in the description below. As part of the Forbidden Knowledge Network, you'll also find the Quantum Guide Show with Karen Holton on all audio platforms. Until next time, keep up the good work.